I read about how the pet cemetery is going under and that all the pets are going to be exhumed. My first cameraman told me I didn't know how to shoot this kind of thing, and he did. At one point, I pushed him into a partially exhumed dog grave.
Welcome, everyone, back to another edition of Let's Take 5, the podcast where we look at one of the greats of cinema and discuss their excellence and range. My name is Eric Martindale.
My name is Austin Ligger.
And on the podcast today, we have a very special treat because we're joined by Zach Bundy, our friend Zach Bundy, the infamous Zach Bundy, who spent some time working in an animal hospital alongside myself, so we thought it would fit The Gates of Heaven, which is the movie we're covering today, as the first film in our Errol Morris 5. The next film we will cover is The Thin Blue Line. But today, we are talking about Gates of Heaven. And Gates of Heaven is the, what year was this?
1978.
1978 documentary by Errol Morris that surrounds Napa Valley in California and the surrounding pet cemetery business. Zach, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm just thinking back to our days of saving lives.
Saving lives, yes.
At the Blood Animal Hospital.
So, yeah, what had happened there was that... I don't know if it was just we didn't want to tell people we worked at an animal hospital or something.
No, I think what it was is that we didn't want to tell people that we were receptionists at an animal hospital. So it's why I said, hey, what do you do? We go, oh, we save lives. And they're like, oh, where do you work? And they say, Blood Animal Hospital. And, you know, they're like, oh, well, you guys are vets. We're like, well, not exactly.
Yeah, not exactly.
No, I've been at a bar where Eric once said, yeah, I'm a doctor.
Oh, yeah, I told everyone.
Yeah, I'm actually unrelated, but... We've been at bars before where Eric and I have told a guy that we were FBI agents, and he believed us.
He believed us, so it's...
Well, that'll fit next week's film as well.
Yeah, that totally would.
The professions you've lied about.
So, Gates of Heaven his reputation sort of precedes itself a little bit. I mean, everyone, again, I feel like I'm a broken record here, but I bring up Roger Ebert a lot on the podcast because I was a huge fan of his writings and his work. And this was a film he showed every single year at Eberfest, I believe, or most years. He was obsessed with this film, and he thought that he always loved the audience's reaction from it, because the first question, or inevitably the question would be brought up, usually quickly, was, so were they making fun of these people?
Right.
Like, I don't understand what I was supposed to feel. Because the town is, putting it lightly, a sort of hick town in California. It's definitely not what you think of when you think of California. And the obsession these people have with their pets and the pet cemeteries, it almost has like a very lonely feeling to it. You know, it's like they don't have any real friends. They have their animals or whatever. And then the fact that there's the pet cemetery business seems to be a big boon. Like, that's kind of bizarre, too. Like, when there's not that much in town, like, the entrepreneur decides, man, I know the ticket. I'm going to make a pet cemetery.
At one point, somebody does say that there's a need for this business in this area, which I didn't know that was something that needed to happen.
Yeah, right. There's a dearth in the pet cemetery business. Yeah. It was a film that he talked about quite a lot, and it was the first, and Ebert, and it was the first film to make his famous great movies list, which is crazy. What do you think about it? So I know you'd seen it before. So what did you think of the film, Zach?
I mean, it's interesting you said that as far as like what are we supposed to feel like is this guy making fun of them? But I felt like his use of cinematography. And there's times where he just leaves the shot on a person after a voiceover of theirs, you know, says something's going on, and you just see their, like, blank stare almost into the distance, and you're like, I feel kind of bad for these people. Not necessarily because their pets died, but just because of their life. Like, like it seems like very mundane. And I mean, there's this one of the sons of the pet cemetery towards the end was talking about, like, he was at university and studying business, and, like, he had this life ahead of him that was, like, I don't know, kind of like a playboy type life, but now he's playing second fiddle to his dad at a pet cemetery.
And his brother.
And his brother,
His younger brother.
Yeah, his younger brother, too, yeah. So, it's a really interesting, it gives you a really interesting feel for these people, but then you have, and I'm sure we're going to get to it in depth, the door Lady at the Door monologue, where during this entire scene, this lady's talking about stuff that has nothing to do with pet cemeteries.
Well, her son needs to help out a lot more.
Yeah, that's the thing. She keeps talking about her son. Like,
he has his office job.
He has his office job now. Like, he was working in the factory. Now he's got his office job.
So let's talk about it since you unearthed it. So I've watched that monologue like 5 times because it's on. If you Google or YouTube this movie, that monologue pops up. First of all, go ahead.
We'll put it at the end of the episode in its entirety.
It's incredible. Like if it had been acted, it would be like
Meryl Streep level.
Yeah, it's
like
unbelievable.
amazing.
There's so much truth in it, and I think so. Now that I've seen it five times, I think it serves 2 purposes. One is to introduce the type. Well, the movie's been going on a while, but get you more familiarized with the type of people that live in this area, but also show you how the pets replace family. So she had her son, and now he ran off with that whore, and then they got in an argument, and they got divorced. She knew he was
she just wants her money.
She just wants her money. And then in the last 30 seconds about, but I really miss that cat. You miss them just as much as family, I'll tell you that. So it's like how they sort of integrate themselves and become part of the family. This woman seems really lonely. It looks like she could use a pet, and I think that's why that's there.
Well, there's so much about the idea of like, what does this mean to them, right? Like it's an element of closure because the idea of just like throwing them in the bin, which is said over and over again, it just seems so cold after spending a decade with this pet, and that's kind of like where it's just the idea of like putting them somewhere nice, even though the cemeteries often don't look very nice. It's about kindness that they have towards them. I think the film has the same kind of kindness towards the subjects. Like, I think it's very curious and it's entertained by their eccentricities. I guess that word right, but they never like mock them. I don't think it's a mocking movie.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It definitely makes you feel for. I can't remember the name of the gentleman. But he's the one that the film starts on.
Yeah, that guy, Floyd.
Floyd, Mac was his nickname. It really makes you feel for him because he's just a guy that loves animals and doesn't want to go to a rendering plant, which we can get into
the rendering plant guy.
Now that's a villain.
But back on Mac, he very much generally loves animals and like wants to do anything he can to help these owners of these pets help their grieving process. There was one story about where this little boy's pet lamb died, and his dad called the rendering plant to get them to come pick it up and take the body. And the little boy hopped on his horse, which also reinforces the small town. Like, he didn't hop in a car; he hopped on his horse, went over to Max and told him this, and then Mac got a couple of horses and hooked them up to his wagon to go get the animal, and then bring it back so they could bury it. So, but as he was talking about that, it wasn't his pet; it was just somebody else's. But you could see in his eyes the love he has for these animals, and that's truly what drove him to want to create a pet cemetery. Yeah.
So you have two different pet cemeteries you focus on here, and you have the one which is the Mac that we're talking about, which is very much. I mean,
it's very much the little guys.
Yes, and as weird as it may seem. You do feel that Mac really loves these animals, and that is why he's in the business.
Right. Yeah.
And then you get the other business, which is, and this doesn't really. I don't want to put a bad light on this guy because I think he's good too. But it's much more of a business. It's much more structured. He has he's probably saying every time a new pet's buried there, he probably says the same exact spiel to those people.
And he does. He even mentions that. So they have in the second pet cemetery, they have a place specifically designated for service dogs and police dogs, and he buries them and everything for free. But he does say, if you'd like your pet to be buried with these pets, and it's not a service dog, that is a little bit extra.
Yeah.
Than a normal burial. So, for him, I'm sure that, he has something that drove him to do this, a love for animals. But at the same time, and I think there's even a shot of him kind of like wiping off a stone that has plaques on it that I assume were his pets. But it's very much still a business.
It's very, it feels that way. Yeah.
But not like, because like the funeral business for humans has become such a crazy market where, these coffins are costing $10,000 and there is a monopoly on grief and whatnot. Mm-hmm. This just seems like it's just a functional businessman as opposed to just like a guy like scamming these people.
And I looked that up, and that's still a business. So, and he says something in there like this is going to be a business for 40 years or 50 years or forever. I can't remember what he says. Well, I mean, this movie was made in 77, 78. I'll probably ask it again.
It's fine.
And I mean, he's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting though, you have to. I mean, obviously you said you looked it up. It's still in business. The other guy, Mac, his pet cemetery was out of business while they were filming this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it didn't last very long, and I don't know if that's.
You see getting exhumed.
Yeah, you see them exhuming the pets to be moved somewhere else, and so I wonder if that's a correlation between this is a business versus this is something I just want to do to help people.
Yeah,
like you have to keep it in mind that this is a business.
Well, getting to the Errol Morris this was his first film, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was looking he saw that in the paper. That was happening, and he was like, this is a movie. Like, I got to get down there, and I got to start filming that. Yeah. And you were mentioning how it's filmed, too, and the way the cinematography works, everything's on a tripod, and it just points the camera at people. And I've seen interviews with Errol Morris where he'll say, I like to do it this way, because if you just set the camera there and let people talk, as he says it, the truth will emerge.
Well, he also made, I don't think it was made for this film, but later on, even still in his new films, he made this device, and he coined a word for it. It's basically a teleprompter for a documentarian where he can talk to you basically through the lens. So like the camera will be between you two, but you still see like his full face. Mm-hmm. That way you can just have an intimate conversation right to the camera.
Yeah.
And that's something he likes to do a lot. And you see especially with the early stuff with the woman in the doorway and with Mac, they're just talking to the camera in a way that doesn't feel like creepy. It just feels like a conversation.
Yeah, I think too that I did notice with the lady in the doorway that there are times where, and this just speaks to people's uncomfortability of not having anybody respond to them. Because there are times where she's talking and you can see her looking off the camera to, supposedly maybe the boom operator or the camera op or Errol himself. Like you could see her like kind of like as a documentarian, you don't want to engage the subjects because they're the ones who it's about, not you. So it's just interesting to see those people. The reactions of like, why aren't you answering me?
Yeah, because she's trying to figure out what the town name is next to it or something.
And she gets to it eventually.
Yeah, and she goes, I think that's what it was called. Yeah. She was up for that.
There's the thing that Errol Morris, I think, really likes, where he's so interested in people and also like how they speak. Not necessarily what they're saying sometimes. Like the guy we talked about earlier, the son, he just describes that grid in complete details, like where they buried things. It is a really boring thing. You match up the letter and the number. That's how grids work. Yeah. But just the way he describes it is so particular with his wording that even though it is a boring piece of information, it's weirdly engaging cinema because he's proud that he knows how to work the grid and knows right where to put the animal.
And sometimes the movie even seems unfocused in what the subject really is about the pets, it's about the movies, it's about the people, the setting or whatever. Yeah. And I mean, if there was one part in that where I felt like it broke a little bit, where I go, maybe this is a step too far, and that was the kid playing the music.
Yeah.
It's like, I really don't get this.
Was that the one where he's playing the guitar?
He's playing the guitar over the canyon or whatever, the valley there. And I mean...
See, I kind of like that.
It's weird. I almost liked it as... it depends on what your focus your subject
It changed
on.
The documentary. It changed the documentary from a pet cemetery documentary to a documentary about the people.
The people, right? Which it still is. So I don't know. I guess I'm still up in the air about it.
Because it begins with like the business side of it, with the first place and second place. But I liked it more once it became about these people, and I really enjoyed also like when you would have these old men who like had a dog pass away. Like I really liked the guy who they're at the plot, they're about to bury him, and he shows them the picture. The guy working there. It's like,
It's
This was like a very sweet dog. He absolutely was. It feels like a very like military man. I was like, very matter of fact about his dog. It's just a very sweet thing, and the way that they talk about these animals, it's a particular kinship, and just looking for a way to kind of give back to the animal that gave to them for 10 years.
They're two animals. The animals are here for two reasons: to love and to be loved. That's what Max says. I want to say that I do think this film has one of the more profound things ever said at a documentary, even though it seems like such an easy topic or such an easy thing to. So at the end of the film. The very last monologue, you guys remember that? The older lady's talking about her pet that died, and she goes, I mean, it was there, it was moving, and whatever that was that made it move is gone. Mm-hmm. That had to be something, right?
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like an ellipses, and then the film ends, and I was like, whoa. Yeah. That made me feel things, like, right at the end of the film. So, I mean, there is some sort of, like, philosophical nature to the film that exists beyond the actual characters that are there.
Yeah.
I mean, the subject is still death, you know.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, because you guys worked at Animal Hospital, and let's try to keep your stories as sad as the film. So let's keep them at like a 5 or 6 on the sad story scale. Okay. But like, what was it like dealing with some of these, the owners that would be coming in, and what they were like, and kind of how did their affection and obsession sometimes match what you saw here? What was it like?
You want to get out there?
Yeah, so in particular, there's one guy and one dog I remember was a bulldog. I worked the 12 to 8 shift Monday through Friday. This guy came in at around 12, and he walks in the front with a huge tarp, and you can see that it's heavy. And he just comes up to me and says, my dog died. And I was like, okay, well, let me get a room. And so we were trying to find an empty room where he can go in. We had a clipboard that had like all the questions to ask as far as like in Chicago, there are some pet cemeteries, but for the most part it's cremation. And then the owners like to, keep the remains. So we get into a room, and I asked him, we talk about it, and this dog had passed away at overnight, like 1 a.m. And his kids had woken up and gone to school thinking the dog was asleep. They didn't know it was dead. And so he had told me, we want to wait we want our kids to come to say goodbye to the dog. And I was like, okay, well, when will the kids be available? He said about 4 or 5 o'clock. And so here we have this bulldog that's already started decaying and, had a smell to it. And so we put it, we typically would put it in a freezer before we sent it to be cremated.
Then if you put it in the freezer, it's when it comes out, it's not going to be presentable.
Yeah, it's not going to be presentable. So we couldn't put it in the freezer.
Yeah.
So we just left it in this room for about 4 hours. And, the kids came, the mom came, and I sat there with them and went over the paperwork of, to ask them how they'd like to proceed and everything like that. And the gentleman, like, the entire time was very business. Like, this, he's like, let's choose this receptacle, let's do this and that. The kids obviously were sad, and so was the wife. But it was interesting. Anytime that happened, that was the only time that someone brought their dog in already deceased. Most of the other times it was euthanasia that I had to deal with. But it was interesting because people love these animals so much that I walked in the room and all I could think of is, man, it smells in here. And these people walked in the room and all they could think of is, here's our, beloved dog. Mm-hmm. Like they put all that stuff beside them and, were hugging it and stuff like that, which I know sounds really creepy because it's like, that's a dead dog, but that's also, like in the documentary, they say that sometimes these animals are like children, like that's how they are. They're part of the family. So it was interesting to see that from their point of view versus from mine, just seeing a deceased dog that smelled.
Yeah, it's weird too. In Chicago, you have, I feel like pets sort of surrogate more for kids than maybe elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like when you're in the big city, a lot of people elect not to have kids because it's difficult to raise kids in the city. I mean, I don't want to speak for Bundy here, but he's doing that.
I'm having kids. Well,
I have a dog.
Real quick too, that it's interesting because in the documentary, there's a part where it's the second owner was saying you're reaching a point, and this is back in the 70s, late 70s. So you're reaching a point where the old norm of the man going to work and the woman staying at home is no longer the case. Now women are going off to work and they want to have fun first before having a family. And he's like, so what they do, instead of having kids, they get a dog.
Yeah, it was 100% correct.
Yeah, and he said, and then you've got the grandparents on both sides that want grandchildren, but their son or the daughter's not giving them, so they get a dog. So now you have a family who has a dog in place of children, and then 2 grandparent sets that both have a dog. So that's 3 dogs, and it's just, it goes from there.
Yeah,
so it's interesting.
And I remember that being said, and I watched it with Meg, and she was like, turn around to me, I was like, yeah, that's exactly, there's a lot to this guy was a good businessman too, man. I mean, this guy was able to recognize that, and he was right. I mean, there were tragic stories when I was working there I could fill the evening with, but those don't always.
Please don't.
I won't.
You told me something. They're very sad.
But it's
a 5-hour podcast.
Yeah,
no one will download it. It's just dead dog stories.
I don't, and I'm not even going to give a specific one. Just suffice it to say, this sort of met with the tone of this. I mean, I remember one guy brought in a beer for his dog before getting euthanized, and he shared the beer with him in the room.
Okay.
That happens. And then there were some dogs that were sick there that were coming in a while, so you got to know those pets up until the euthanasia. Because they're prior to the euthanasia, they're coming to the vet more often because they're not doing well.
Right.
So, I mean, you would get an attachment to those pets as well. And then when you see the bodies after the euthanasia, and the family leaves and they're bereaved and they're crying, and then it's someone's job to pick up the pet and put it in the freezer, and it's not a thing anymore. It's gone.
Yeah,
and it is weird seeing them come in one way, go out another.
Yeah.
It's kind of curious that a lot of that part is not in the film at all. There's not. Is there any crying in the film? It's really kind of is people who have had time to process and consider it.
There's one moment where there's a couple who their dog passes away from heartworms, and she gets a little choked up, but it's a split second, and then she's saying something about the dog, and then immediately says, "Make sure you get your dogs checked for heartworms."
Yeah.
So she's almost grieved by it, and then all of a sudden changes to a warning.
Right.
So, but that's the only time I've ever really seen. Even when Mac was talking about, when his dog died, when he was, I think it was when he was a kid or something like that, you could see a little glisten in his eye that he was getting teary-eyed, but he didn't. For a documentary about losing things so close to you, I didn't see one tear fall.
No.
Yeah.
Well, then you get to I know we're getting late here, but you get to the rendering plant guy, which we didn't talk about, which is the glue factory.
He's the glue that holds this thing together.
Yeah. This guy loves turning animals into items.
Well, think of the way that the Morris shot these 2 people. Mac, nice in the frame, really get a good look. Maybe a little glisten in his eye. This guy can't at an angle. You see his whole desk full of papers, and he's just oh yeah, I got to deal with this giraffe.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Real quick too, the thing about this guy that I just was like, "Are you an idiot?" is when he's like, "Yeah, so people want to know what happens to these animals, that die, and like the zoo, there was a giraffe that passed away, and everybody later on was asking well, what happened to the body? And the zoo was like, oh, well, we buried it, but here's the thing, we got a deal with the zoo.
Yeah, what's the guy doing?
So they we got a deal with them, so they bring us the animals, And I'm like, dude, you are just telling this to a documentarian. This is something that is going to be seen by potentially tens of thousands of people, even more, and you're just blowing the lid off on the zoo.
So the clip that you heard that was made by Adam Lord at the beginning of this podcast, that comes from a segment from the Criteria Collection Special Features, where he talks about how his first cameraman that he got down there thought he was shooting the whole thing wrong. I think he wanted to do a handy cam, and he was like, I want to do a tripod. So they got in a fight, and Errol Morris pushed him, and he fell. The guy fell into an exhumed dog grave. Partially exhumed dog grave, because they were there digging up the graves. And then, of course, before we let go, we have to mention the Werner Herzog.
Who we love. We covered him many fives ago. Herzog and Errol Morris were really good friends, and at this point, Herzog had made several films, and I guess I was a filmmaker, and he just kept seeing what Errol Morris was doing, but he just never could finish making this movie. He just never get finished. So he made a declaration in public that if Errol Morris actually finishes this film, he's going to eat his own shoe. And then he did. There's a delightful 20-minute doc made by Les Blanc, who made the insane Herzog documentary Burden of Dreams, about how he went nuts making Fitzcarraldo, where he travels, and he eats his shoe in front of an audience and discusses why he likes Errol Morris so much, and of course he's Herzog, so he also discusses other things that he hates. There should be a war on Bonanza, he said. There should be a war on television. There should be a war on late-night talk shows. Just things he was thinking while the camera was on. And at the end, he does eat his shoe, and it looks very gross. He tried to boil it all day, add some spices to it.
Did he boil it? Yeah.
Was it a leather shoe?
Yeah, he thought it'd be proper if it was the shoes he was wearing while he made this declaration. So they were nice shoes.
Yeah.
Emphasis on were.
Well,
Did he eat both of them?
Just one.
Just one.
Side note, if you are ever stuck on a desert island or in the wild and you don't have anything to eat, you can chew on leather and it will sustain you for not ever, but for a little bit. That's a little survival tip.
That's why Herzog's still alive.
I was going to say, that's why you're still alive, buddy. You got stranded on the desert island that one time and you get your belt.
Exactly.
I think that wraps us up. You want to take us out?
Absolutely. So we'll be back next week with the next edition in our Errol Morris 5. It will be his seminal film, The Thin Blue Line. Until then, you can check us out at theartofmore.com, where you can leave a comment on this episode or any other episodes. While you're there, you can check out some other podcasts, including The Immortals, where myself and 3 others review the 1001 movies, albums, food, songs, and TV shows you must see before you die. This week we did number 1. So it was a Trip to the Moon, The Ed Sullivan Show, and a Frank Sinatra album.
Well, that's a short movie.
It was a short episode. So that was not... Don't worry, our discussion of Trip to the Moon was longer than the film itself.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is it, 13 minutes?
It's 13 minutes long. Our discussion was about 20. Also there, check out Ad Absurdum, where 2 lawyers discuss the real-life implications of pop culture, which is very fun. Where else can we find you?
Constant Diversion's YouTube channel. There will be a Chrono Trigger video someday.
I'm very excited. I have 4 more levels to go.
You're right there.
I'm right there.
I just bought Meg the sheet music, so you're going to have to come over and listen to it.
That's a thing we can do.
We're nerds around here.
Anything you want to plug, Bundy?
Yeah, so, no. I mean, I'm just a dad, so I don't know.
Hey, I saw you rescued on Chicago Fire.
Yeah. I should.
Yeah, I saw you rescued on Chicago Fire.
I was rescued on Chicago Fire. They cut my one line, which was, please help me, and I'm stuck. And you can
say that with your face.
From an editor standpoint, there's fire blazing around this actor, and he's stuck in a vice. So I don't think you need to have him say, please help me, I'm stuck.
The editor went, why is he saying this?
Yeah.
I can see all these things.
It's not going great for me right now.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for joining, everybody. My name's Eric Martindale.
Austin Luger.
And I'm Zach Bundy.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm raised on a farm. We have chickens and pigs and cows and sheep and everything. But down here, I've been lost. Now they've taken them all the way from here up to the... What's that name of that place up above here a little ways? That town. Commences with B. Blue Hill. It's Blue Hill Cemetery. I think the name of it is. Not too far. I guess about maybe 20 miles from here. A little town there, a little place. You know where it's at, that place. But I was really surprised when I heard they were getting rid of the cemetery over here. We're going to put in buildings or something over there. Well, I know people have been very good to me, Ron. Well, they seen my condition. I guess that's what they're sorry for me. But it's real, my condition is. It's not put on, that's for sure. Boy, if I could only walk, if I could only get out, drive my car, I'd get another car. Yeah, and my son, if he was only better to me. After I bought him that car, he's got a nice car. I bought it myself just a short time ago. I don't know. These kids, Every time the more you do for him, he's my grandson, but I raised him from 2 years old. And my husband always told me, he says, Mama, someday you're going to be sorry. That was a car, huh? Was that? Oh, boy. He says, some days you're going to be sorry. You see how it happens, things? I don't see him very often. And he just got the car. I didn't pay for all of it. I gave him $400. Pretty good. His boss knows it. Well, he's not working for that outfit now. He's changed. He's gone back on his old job, hauling sand. No, not hauling sand. He's working in the office, that's right. He took over the office job. Yeah, his boss told me that on the phone. But, you know, he should help me more. He's all I got. He's the one that brought me up here. And then put me here by myself among strangers. It's terrible, you stop and think of it. I've been without so much when I first came up here. And, it's just, you know, it's, that's what half my trouble is from him not being home with me. Didn't cost him nothing to stay here. Every time you need money, it always come, Mom, can I have this, can I have that? He never pays back. Too good, too easy, it's what everybody tells me. I quit now. I quit. Now, he's got the office job, I'm going after him. I'm going after him good, too. If I have to go in a different way, he's going to pay that money. He's got the office job now, and he makes good money anyway. And he has no kids. He is not married. He never get married, he says. He was married once. They're divorced. And, well, she tried to take him for the kid, but she didn't. They went to court for somebody else's kid. But she's nothing but a tramp in the first place. I told him that. He wouldn't listen to me. I says, I know what she is. I said, Richard, please, listen to me. No, he wouldn't listen. He knew all. He knew everything. Big shot. But he soon found out. Now that's all over with. I've been through so much, I don't know how I'm staying alive. Really, I have, for my age. If you're young, it's different, but I've always said I'm never going to grow old. I've always had that. And people that I tell how old I am, they don't believe me. Because people my age as a rule don't get around like I do. Skippy's been dead quite a while, 2 or 3 years. You know. Yeah. I don't want to think about it. He was so, everybody liked that dog around here. You know, you miss your pets just like you do any of the family. And I don't know what happened to this last little kitty who was here. Now all the cats have gone. There's no cats around her, no animals, no nothing. I miss that little black kitten so much. It was wonderful. And all of a sudden, boom, no animals around. Somebody in the neighborhood or something is doing away with them. I'm raised on a farm. We have chickens and pigs and cows and sheep and everything. But down here, I've been lost. Now they've taken them all the way from here up to the, what's that name of that place up above here a little ways? The town. Commences with B. Blue Hill. It's Blue Hill Cemetery. I think the name of it is. Not too far. I guess about maybe 20 miles from here. A little town there, a little place. You know where it's at, that place. But I was really surprised when I heard they were getting rid of the cemetery over here. We're going to put in buildings or something over there. Well, I know people have been very good to me, you know, Ron. Well, they seen my condition. I guess that's felt sorry for me. But it's real, my condition is. It's not put on, that's for sure. Boy, if I could only walk, if I could only get out, drive my car, I'd get another car. Yeah. And my son, if he was only better to me. After I bought him that car, he's got a nice car. I bought it myself just a short time ago. I don't know. These kids. Sometimes the more you do for him, he's my grandson, but I raised him from 2 years old. And my husband always told me, he says, Mama, someday you're going to be sorry. That was a car, huh? Was that? Oh, boy. He says, some days you're going to be sorry. You see how it happens, things? I don't see him very often. And he just got the car. I didn't pay for all of it. I gave him $400. Pretty good. His boss knows it. Well, he's not working for that outfit now. He's changed. He's gone back on his old job. Hauling sand. No, not hauling sand. He's working in the office, that's right. He took over the office job. His boss told me that on the phone. But, you know, he should help me more. He's all I got. He's the one that brought me up here. And then put me here by myself among strangers. It's terrible. You stop and think of it. I've been without so much when I first came up here. And, it's just, that's what half my trouble is from him not being home with me. Didn't cost him nothing to stay here. Every time you need money, it'd always come, Mom, can I have this, can I have that? He never pays back. Too good, too easy, it's what everybody tells me. I quit now. I quit. Now, he's got the office job, I'm going after him. I'm going after him good, too. If I have to go in a different way, he's going to pay that money. He's got the office job now, and he makes good money anyway. And he has no kids. He is not married. He never get married, he says. He was married once. They're divorced. And, well, she tried to take him for the kid, but she didn't. They went to court with somebody else's kid. But she's nothing but a tramp in the first place. I told him that. He wouldn't listen to me. I said, I know what she is. I said, Richard, please, listen to me. No, he wouldn't listen. He knew all. He knew everything. Big shot. But he soon found out. Now that's all over with. I've been through so much, I don't know how I'm staying alive. Really, I have, for my age. If you're young, it's different, but I've always said I'm never going to grow old. I've always had that. And people that I tell how old I am, they don't believe me. Because people my age as a rule don't get around like I do. Skippy's been dead quite a while, 2 or 3 years. You know. Yeah. I don't want to think about it. He was so, everybody liked that dog around here. You know, you miss your pets just like you do in the family. And I don't know what happened to this last little kitty was here. All the cats have gone. There's no cats around there, no animals, no nothing. I miss that little black kitten so much. It was wonderful. And all of a sudden, boom, no animals around. Somebody in the neighborhood or something is doing away with them.